We're back. Taking a short break, and we came back after we were doing this thing here. One thing I want to do is kind of update my GitHub. So I'm going to say git add dot. Notice there's a lot of little things we get with our standard assets. Git commit minus m, and we'll say added standard assets. That's what we did. And then git push origin master. Now, some of this stuff you're not going to get because I haven't closed down Unity and I haven't saved my scene and all that stuff. But even with this stuff, if you notice, even the standard assets, there's still going to be quite a few that's going to go up. Like right now, we're looking at just standard assets I downloaded. It's like 50 meg. It's not small. Like none of this stuff is small. All right, let's get back into this. So we talked about nav mesh. We talked about this stuff. Let's talk about another way of doing this. So we'll get rid of my third person in my AI controller. We'll get rid of him. And let's unbake my mesh. I'm just going to clear it, so I don't care about my mesh right now. What if, I'm just going to add this in here. What if I want to add in my own? So let's add in a prefab. I've got a block I'm going to add in to the scene. That I'm going to put into the center. So in my transform, I'm going to reset my transform for the prefab. It's pretty massive, right? Let's make it a little bit smaller by changing the size of my prefab, so it's a lot smaller than that. It's not just a block. It's like way small. And let's change the color. So again, it's just a box collider with a mesh renderer. Right now, that's all it has. We can add other things in there to my prefab. But let's add in some colors. So I'm going to go into materials. Or sorry, textures. That's where I want it to go. And I want to add almost like a red swatch to this thing. So there we go, make it red, like a red block, really quickly. There we go. And I need to add in my box collider, let's also add in a rigid body. So physics, rigid body, so that I can fall and respond to physics events. So, and I'll raise it up so we can see what it looks like, and I'll press play. There it is. My red block. That's my enemy, right? That's my enemy. So let's just rename this thing from block prototype to enemy. Right? There it is. And my enemy, I want him to follow me, right? I have no script right now, but I want him to be able to follow me around. How do I do that? Well, one thing to note is, first of all, let's add a script to this guy, right? So I'm going to say add component, new script, and we'll call this thing enemy controller. My enemy controller script, and I'm going to add it in. Now, of course, it doesn't add it in the right place. It goes into in the assets. I'm going to put this into scripts like this. Save my scene, and in my enemy controller script, this is where I want to write in some other code. I don't want to use a nav mesh in this particular case. I want to do it a little differently. So one thing to note is I want to have hooks into my enemy in terms of its transform and all that stuff. So we're going to add those in there right now. So we're going to say. These are kind of our private variables, instance variables here in C#, and we'll just add in a private script, which we'll call transform, like we normally do, which is of type, of course, transform, which should go over here. Right. And we want to, in our start method, we want to assign our transform, right, to game object, game object dot get component. How come it's not working, guys? How come I'm not getting a thing, any kind of code hinting? Anybody know? So this dot underscore transform is equal to, right? I can say this again dot game object, but if I say type in game object, I get nothing. How come? How about if I type game object like this, I get nothing too, right? But I can always do this. I know this is a game object, so this is this dot, right? Get components. Oh man, how come it's not working? How come my transform, it's a private transform that is not working? Anybody? Sometimes it happens, and I'll show you what this does. So if I was to go here and just skip out of here, close this down, and go back to Unity, and I look at my my enemy, and I double click on this thing, and I start typing again. right? And I start doing, game object, sometimes it'll come back right here, right? But let's say, for example, it doesn't. We know what it is. It's game object, right? Dot get component. Forget about the code hinting, right? Get component, and then in brackets, transform. Right? That's what I want my object to be, right? That's my transform is. All right, let's do the next one. Now that I know what this is, I want to also know the distance, right, between my object and my my target. Well, the target would be me, right? That's the player. So we can call it target. We can call it player. We'll make it a public instance. So public instance variables now. And notice I'm going to use the public keyword. So it'll be public, and the name, of course, it's going to be a transform again. Notice I'm not getting code hinting yet again. Who cares? And I need to make it so that it's called target, right? And now when I do that, if I go back to my script here, I should see, if everything goes well, a transform for target. Well, my target is going to be my first-person controller, so I'm going to pass in a reference to it, just like we did with our AI, right? Let's go back to this thing. All right, cool. So I've got my target. Now I can use my vector3 object, right? So I can do something like this. I want to know the distance. I want to know the distance. I want to print out the distance in my thing. So I'm going to use debug.log. Who cares if I'm not getting any code hinting? Who cares? I care. I use debug.log, and in my debug.log, I'm going to debug a vector3 dot distance between where I am right now, which is this dot underscore transform dot position, right, to my target position, target dot position, which I could also put this dot target position, which is totally fine, which is the right way to do it. Now, if I had a problem with any of the script, by the way, it would error out. It would give me reds, right? So, oh yeah, and I probably have to put it inside my brackets like that. How about them apples? All right, so now that I've got that, I'm back here, and I got a problem. It says assets, scripts, enemy controller. A unit engine debug does not contain a definition for log. I'm not getting any code hinting. It's capital L, I'm thinking. Debug log. Let's see if I took care of that. Yes. And now let's run this thing. I want to, so it's going to tell me my distance from my character to my block. Right? Notice how my distance right now is 4.36. If I walk, it's going to change. My distance is going to modify. 12 is 17. If I move over here, it's going to give me my distance. It's calculating my distance from its transform to mine. As I come closer, you can see that I'm right against it, and I can knock it over if I want. No problem, right? All right, so that's the first thing. So I know my distance. Well, and notice how it's reporting its distance every frame, right? That's what I'm doing with this script. All right, well, this works, but this doesn't really do anything for me. What I want to do is, when I want this object to move, right, every frame according to where I am, right? So I don't care about the distance. I can use distance. I'm showing you that I can detect the distance. So let's, for example, if I'm really, really far away, then as an example, I don't have to move towards me. I can make the behavior so if I'm not too close, then it won't need kind of be close enough to me. And I can set this up in a private distance variable, like distance from target. So I can say private, and I'll call this thing, it'll be a float, right? That's what I'm getting back, a float, which is underscore distance from target. My distance from target then would be, and I can set this up as something that I'm putting in here. Instead of this debug.log, I can log it here every frame. So I'm going to do something like this, like this dot underscore distance from target then is equal to this vector3 object that calculates the distance between me and the enemy, right? And I can say this, if this dot underscore distance from target, right, is less than 10, then I want it to follow me. How do I follow it? How does it follow me, as an example? But only if it's less than 10. If it's greater than 10, I'm outside of its range. Who cares, right? So how does this work? So I have to use another vector3 property, and the way to do that is to actually look at the vector3. So let's go into Unity for a second. So we say vector3 for Unity. And under the vector3, you notice that there are some static variables, like we talked about before, like back, down, and forward. But there's also some static functions, which means I don't have to instantiate a vector3. I can use something like this, vector3.moveTowards, and I can use a script that looks like this. Transform position, my new so the position of this object, right, is equal to a vector3 move towards my transform starting where my transform position, and then to the target position with a specific step, which is my speed multiplied by time delta time. Time delta time is the change in my frame rate, and I usually would put that in something like a you know, an update, or it's not fixed updates. I'm not doing physics necessarily, although I could put it in there as well. So let's copy this little line of code right here from the Unity API and go back into my script and put that in here and modify it a little bit. So I'm going to say paste. So it's not transform position, just to make sure what it is this dot underscore, just to make sure we have it correctly, this dot underscore transform position. So this new position of this enemy is now equal to vector3 move towards, starting at my this dot underscore transform position to the target position. That's valid. And I don't have anything called step, but I can always put something like 0. Or some kind of speed. Let's put a speed variable in there. Right? We don't have a speed variable, but we're going to make it as a public instance variable here. So public float speed, right? And we're going to use this speed variable, this dot underscore speed. It's got speed to move towards. Right? Notice how I have to set the speed in my code. So if I go back to my enemy, my speed is 0. I should probably set it low, like 0.05, guys, 0.05. Don't make it high. You'll see how this is messed. All right, cool. So let's try this thing out. This little script I just did. And if it works, we're good, right? Oh, it's eating me, man. Right? The cube is just bouncing at me. And by the way, it'll follow me everywhere, even up the ramp, as much as possible. And now see how it's still within 10, right? What if I go over here? It's not going to follow me anymore. But if I go around it, right? And as soon as I get close enough to it, they'll try and eat me, right? Come on, get me now, man. Come on, oh, someone's climbing up the thing, right? Like, it's trying its darndest to get me, right? So, again, there's some really interesting little simple things you can do with stuff. This is obviously too fast, the speed of 0.05, man. Look, because I'm not multiplying by time delta time. Let's move it to 0.01. And let's see if that's a little better. It's more probably manageable than how I had it before. So let's try that, 0.01. Okay, that's a little bit more manageable, so like maybe a little bit too easy, but as you can see, it's moving closer. And if I go over here to my ramp, right, as long as I'm within 10, that's my thing, it'll try and climb the ramp towards me, and it'll come up the ramp and attack me, right? And it'll even come down the ramp, like jump off the ramp to me, right? Woo! Right? Ooh. And it'll keep rolling until I get far enough away where it's too far, right? So what have we done here, right? I mean, I know it sounds like silly, stupid, but there are some really cool things that Vector3 objects have just from the get-go, just from doing this, where you can play around and make something that's interesting, right? Even if it's an object like a piece of slime or some kind of, you know, a debris or something, almost like they're coming at you, right? One more thing. Let's go back to that API docs. So if you look here, not only does it have move towards, but it also has other things. And one of the things that you can always use is rotate towards. This is kind of neat too. So it'll also rotate so it points at you all the time, right? So if you have a face, like let's say an object that has a texture and looks right at you all the time, it can do that. And this is really effective for things like that are going to target you. Like example, a gun, a character with a gun on top of it, right? It can always target you. So here's the move towards script that they use. Again, a vector 3 with a target direction, right? And then notice how it says my vector 3 target direction is my target position, which whatever it is, minus my current position. That's my target direction. And then I say my vector 3 new direction is then move towards, vector 3 rotate towards my transform position target direction with my step. And my step is going to be the speed that I turn, right? And once I've got that, I'm going to transform rotation, my quaternion look rotation in my new direction. So it's going to go whoop. It's going to move my angle. It's going to change my angle to look at the target, right? Let's put some of this in place. And notice I have a speed. I have my target. I just need all this stuff. So I'm just going to grab the script here from online, and let's adapt it. So I'm going to do two things. I'm not only going to change my distance from the target, but as long as it's less than 10, I'm going to move towards him, and I'm also going to do this new stuff here. So I'm going to say this dot underscore target position minus this. That's wrong, actually. This dot underscore transform. This is just target. And then my step won't be my step. It'll be my speed, which I already have. Really, really slow. So it'll move towards me really, really slowly. So this dot speed. And I'm going to draw a ray. This is just going to draw the ray. I don't need to do this. This is just in a red color, so that I can draw a ray from one object to the other, so you can see it. But this is important. This dot underscore transform rotation is this new quaternion, which is a static object, static quaternion look rotation to the new direction that I'm establishing right here. So I'm changing my direction. This is what this script does. Look at the target. That's what this is going to do, right? And this script here is move towards the target. So look and move. And let's try this out and see the changes if it works. Hopefully it will. So cool. Now if I move, notice how it rotates to try and get to me. And it's always going to rotate wherever the front of the target is, because the front of the target was pointing away from me at the time. Notice how it's going to keep rotating. So this face right here is going to try and be in front, right? This has different effects and different side effects. So if I got to go on the ramp, I'm going to rotate first, right? And if I hit the stairs now, which I'm on the stairs, it's going to continue to rotate, but only the front of the target is going to move, and it won't flip over anymore like it did before, because it's trying to adjust its angle the way it looks at me until it gets to me, right? It'll still get there, even with this little cube. It's pretty persistent, right? Because it's not pathfinding, it's just using vectors to try and figure out where I am. Now, one thing that this does is every frame, it checks the distance, and every frame, it adjusts its position, its look. So there's lots of calculations going on here all the time. And again, this is only moving at like 0.01. Questions around this stuff. So I wanted to give you the rudiments of how do I make an enemy that follows me without using a nav mesh. Nav mesh you can use too. You can attach a nav mesh on here too, a nav mesh agent. The same kind of things that we talked about before. There's two different ways of doing it. Nav mesh agent will only follow a preset path that you define. This will follow you around no matter where you go. It'll climb mountains for you, man. As long as you're in range or it can see you, you can set that up with a raycast. Does it see you? If I have 5 line of sight, it'll do stuff. It can also fire at you the same way if it's following you. Okay, otherwise, next week, guys, please come ready on Monday to present your little case with me. I'm going to sit down with you. I want you to pitch it to me so we can see what you're going to build for the final project. And we'll see you next week.